80% of what makes a website look professional comes down to just a few simple concepts. I know this because I've built over 750 websites for businesses, local shops, SaaS companies, Fortune 500 clients, you name it. So I'm going to walk you through every major web design concept you actually need to know to build websites that look phenomenal and, more importantly, convert visitors into buyers. Number one is UX versus UI. This is the most confused pair in web design. Simply put, UX, which is user experience, is how the site feels to use. Is it easy to navigate? Does it help the user get what they came for, etc.? Now, UI, which is user interface, is how it looks. The colors, the fonts, the buttons, the layout. You can think of it like a restaurant. UX is how smooth the service is. UI is the decor and the menu design. You can have beautiful decor with terrible service and then vice versa. Both matter and they complement each other beautifully, but they're not the same thing. Now, number two is the wireframe. So a wireframe is essentially a sketch. It's usually black and white and it shows the layout and the structure of a page without much in-depth visual design. What you do is you use it to figure out where everything goes before anyone worries about how it actually looks. This is where you get a feel for the flow of your pages. Then we've got number three, which is the mockup. A mockup is what the wireframe looks like once the design is applied on top. It shows the colors, typography, and the imagery. It's basically a static visual of the final design, but it's not clickable or interactive. Then number four is the prototype. So a prototype is the clickable, interactive version of the mockup. You can navigate through it, you can click buttons, you can simulate the real experience before anything is actually built. Most designers use Figma or InVision for this. It's how you test flow and interaction before spending weeks on development. AI is also starting to change the game with this. Using something like Claude Design, you can now go from wireframe through to mockup and then into prototype in a fraction of the time that this used to take. Now, let's talk about some on-page concepts. So at number five, we've got above the fold. Above the fold is everything visible on the page before you scroll. The term itself actually comes from newspaper publishing. It's basically the top half of a folded paper, and it's the most valuable real estate on your page because whatever's above the fold decides whether people stay or whether they leave. So you need to get it right or nothing else matters. And then number six is the hero section. So this is often confused with above the fold, and for the most part, they are the same thing. To give you the quick intro to what a hero section is, it's basically the large, prominent first section of the page. It's usually full screen and it will sit above the fold. This is the part that will have your headline, subheadline, an image, or let's say a video, and then a call to action. What it has to do is answer three questions in 3 seconds. What is this? Who is it for? Why should I care? The hero section doesn't always have to sit above the fold, but for the most part it will. Most people won't scroll past this section, so it's really important to have everything in there that someone needs to take the next step. If they want to get in touch, is it obvious where to do so? Which leads me onto number seven, which is your call to action, or CTA. A call to action is any element that prompts the user to do something specific. Book a call, buy now, get a quote. Every single page on your website should have a clear CTA. Weak CTAs say something like, click here. Strong CTAs tell the user exactly what they're getting. Get your free strategy call beats something like, learn more every single time. Then we've got number 8, which is visual hierarchy. Now this is how design tells the user's eye what's important. You do it through things like size, color, contrast, spacing, positioning. The headline should be the most dominant element on the page. The small print at the bottom should be the least. If everything is loud, then nothing stands out. So hierarchy is exceptionally important. And we've got number 9, which is white space. So white space or negative space is that empty space between and around elements. I always tell people that white space is not wasted space. What it is an intentional design choice that makes everything else easier to read, and it makes the site as a whole feel way more premium. Most cheap looking websites, they'll cram too much in, whereas on the other hand, most premium sites give the elements individually lots of room to breathe. If your site feels cluttered, the fix is almost always just add more white space. Number 10 is typography hierarchy. Now, this is how your text is organized to actually show importance to a visitor. So you've got your H1, this is the most important, which is usually up top on the page, and it's the title, which kind of gives context to the whole page. H2s are going to be your main section headings, H3s are going to be subsections. Then your paragraph type, e.g. your body copy, is the main text that adds context to the page. Good typography hierarchy makes the page readable at a glance, whereas bad hierarchy makes everything feel like the same level of importance, which is first off unreadable, and then second off will inevitably lead to users just bouncing off the site. Coming in at number 11, we've got responsive design. So responsive design means the site adapts automatically to different screen sizes across desktop, tablet, mobile. Over 60% of web traffic comes from mobile in 2026. Responsive site rearranges, it resizes, and it reformats itself based on the device that the user is viewing it on. Responsive design on your site is a non-negotiable. Number 12 is mobile first design. Mobile first is a subtle but quite an important distinction. It means that you design for mobile screens first and then you scale up to desktop as opposed to the other way around. Designing mobile first forces you to prioritize only what matters because there's no room for clutter on a phone screen. And Google now indexes mobile versions first for the search rankings. So it actually affects your SEO too. Then we've got the grid system. So a grid system is an invisible framework of columns and rows that keeps all the content on your page aligned. Think of it like the lined paper underneath tracing paper. You don't see it in the final design, but it's essentially what makes everything line up as it should. Most web platforms use a 12-column grid. As an example, Squarespace snaps elements to the grid automatically, which is why it's so hard to build a poorly misaligned site on it. Then we've got bounce rate. Bounce rate is the percentage of visitors who land on your page and then leave without clicking anything or going anywhere else. A high bounce rate usually means the page isn't doing its job. The content didn't match what the user expected, or the experience wasn't compelling enough to actually keep them there. If your homepage is bouncing at over 80%, something is usually not doing its job. And I will say the only caveat here is that some pages will pretty much always just have a high bounce rate no matter what you do. So for instance, a blog post or a landing page designed to answer just one question, it can have a bounce rate of like 70 to 90%, and it can still be doing its job. That said, if your homepage has a sky-high bounce rate, then something is definitely up. Now we've got conversion rate. Conversion rate is the percentage of visitors who take the action you want them to take. That could be a purchase, a form fill, a booking, any action that you've set the page up to drive. The formula for this is conversions divided by visitors times 100. A 2 to 3% conversion rate, I would say, is decent for most sites. Now, you can have great landing pages that hit 10% or more, especially if the goal is to drive something like a free sign up, like a lot of SaaS companies will optimize for. Now, loading speed. So loading speed is how fast your site loads for the visitor. Every 1 second delay is going to reduce conversions by around 7%. There are a ton of culprits for poor loading speed. You've got things like uncompressed images, too many plugins, heavy code. All these things slow a site down. Now, Google also factors site speed into search rankings. So it's not just about the user experience, it's also going to affect your general visibility too, which leads me into accessibility. Accessibility means designing a site that can be used by people with disabilities, whether it be visual, auditory, motor, or cognitive. Practically, it means you want to be adding alt text on images for your screen readers. You want to have sufficient color contrast and keyboard navigable menus. It's also now becoming a legal requirement in lots and lots of countries. So taking your site through a full accessibility check before pushing it live is wise, just to make sure that your site is accessible to all, as well as covering yourself against potential litigation. And trust me, I've seen this happen more than you'd think with clients who've come to us from other agencies in the past. Number 18 is color theory and contrast. Color theory is the study of how colors interact and what they communicate. So, for instance, blue tends to convey trust, red creates urgency, Green suggests health, or it can suggest money. The way you use colour is incredibly important, even beyond just your site. It bleeds into your brand perception as a whole. Now, contrast is how different two colours are from each other. High contrast in its simplest form, let's say, white text on a dark background, is really easy to read. Low contrast strains the eye. WCAG guidelines specify a minimum contrast ratio that you need to hit for accessibility. Now, if you're looking for top marks on your accessibility, you should be aiming for a 7:1 ratio for smaller text and a 4.5:1 for larger text. Number 19 is social proof. Social proof is any element that shows other people have used, trusted, or endorsed something. I love using a mixture of testimonials, so reviews, client logos, case studies across our client sites. Trust badges are also a biggie. As an example, we've won multiple awards at By Crawford, so on our landing pages, we shout about it loudly. If we have clients who've won awards or they have accreditations, we'll often pop that in the footer so it's visible across all pages on the site. Social proof in general is one of the highest leverage things that you can add to a homepage and to your site as a whole, really. People buy from businesses that other people trust. Number 20 is landing page versus homepage. So I just mentioned landing pages and how we use them. These are commonly confused with a homepage. The way I like to think about this is that a homepage is your front door. It's for everyone. It covers the whole brand. A landing page is built for one specific action and one specific audience. No nav, no distractions, one goal. So when you're running ads, you always send your traffic to a landing page, not a home page. It's just different tools for different jobs. Personally, we've got like 80 or so landing pages on our site, and these target different industries and different locations. These pages are built to drive one specific action from one specific type of customer. If we did this on the home page, let's say, it's going to alienate 99% of visitors. So make sure that you're not making this mistake. Okay, so now you know the lingo. The next step is understanding how these concepts apply right now in 2026, because web design is changing faster than most people realize. If you click this video here, I break down the biggest shifts reshaping what good web design actually looks like this year, from AI-assisted builds to what clients expect now versus 2 years ago. It's worth watching before you start your next website build. I'll see you there.